the last couple days.
Yeah, sound okay.
Sick. Yeah, man, I'm doing good. I was working on some D work stuff last night, and pretty excited
Nice.
actually to show everyone what I've come up with as a demo for D work and Avagachi. So
Awesome.
I didn't get access to the Avagachi DAO, but that's okay because it's allowed me to. I created fake DAO, and I've been able to just kind of
Nice.
sandbox that and create some fun like little demos today. So we got that. We can pretty much get right into it. We also got Mikey J, who's going to go into some Forge stuff. He's going to give us an update on that, and then this kind of ties in with the D-Work stuff, but I also have some other points I want to hit on, and then we're also going to discuss doing some guided talk, like guided discussions around forum posts and stuff. So it's gonna be a good discussion today. I think maybe we can just give it a minute or two here while people are still coming in. But how have you
Sure.
been since yesterday?
Yeah, good, good. Had a nice day. Little Sunday, catching up on some stuff. It's been good.
Oh, is this like Monday for you then? This is
Oh
Monday
no, I'm
for you?
still on Sunday. I'm
Oh,
just finishing up Sunday here.
okay. Yeah, Sundays are usually pretty chill. We do this meeting in the
Yeah,
morning, and then you go for a walk, go for a hike sometimes.
there you go.
So okay, I should. Okay, I'll actually link the DAO notes here as well for the meeting, so people can follow along. So Hardcore's posted the Miro board there. Good job with that. Looks great. These are uh, these are the meeting notes for Abagachi Hub for the Notion.
Nice.
So if you guys want to look at the notes, these are the notes I'm gonna work off of today. But yeah, it'll be good.
Oh, I like the you got the URL updated. Nice.
I did update the URL. It says Avagachi Hub now, so a little bit better than whatever we were saying before.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So Notion is going to be a tool that we continue to use as a DAO. There's a lot of tools on there. It's essentially a repository for data, and it's also a workspace. So just a central location where we can refer to any documentation. All the DAO meeting notes we've had over the last 5 weeks, I think, have been documented in Notion. So if you want to go back and see some of the notes that were taken during that meeting, you can always go back and you'll find them in DAO Discussion notes. And there are also project meeting notes. So I have meetings, a couple meetings every week with people who are working on stuff in Avagachi DAO, and I do take notes during the meetings, and I've left those meeting notes up there for people to. There's nothing on there that that's private, so people can look at some of the project notes on there for meetings we've had. Um, yeah, just some cool stuff. I'll be putting some educational materials on there eventually. Community tools. You can schedule a meeting there. We'll get more into that later, but you can schedule a meeting on there with me directly without talking to me. You can just go there and pick, kind of like, scheduling any kind of other appointment. You go there, pick a date and a time, and we can meet up. Um, what else? Yeah, there's a whole bunch of other stuff, but those are the main features I think that won't change. Even if we use DWork, I think those things will still be used. So, yeah. So that's that. Today we have Mikey J in the house. I guess we can kick off with the Forge discussion here. Actually, let me look at the mirror board. Got the mirror board. No, you know what? We'll go with our usual. We'll go with our usual flow here. We'll go through the sig props, give you guys an update on where we're at there, and then we'll get into it. So, current sig props right now, we have the Forge request for funding and development. That one has met quorum, 15 million to 9 million
Nice.
ghosts, and we have 95% of people who voted yes fund it. So we're gonna get some funding for the Forge, which is really exciting. It's a really great idea, and kind of looking forward to the development there. We have um, these are core props that or these are SIG props ready for a core prop. We have the bonding curve emergency plan. That one passed at 15 million out of 9 million to meet quorum. And that one was 93% for yes. So we will be implementing the bonding curve emergency plan um, and have that in our back pockets. Then we have the new wearable sets, and these are not new wearables. Just to clarify, these are new wearable sets to make things kind of fun. Some of the members, I think Phantasma, and I'm not sure if it was only Phantasma or other people too, but have come together and created some really cool set combinations, and it'll make things interesting for the next rarity farming season, or if you just want to dress up your gachi and look a little different. So there's that. That one has passed with 14 million, 90% for, and so we'll be seeing that implemented. I mean, on your guys' end, that's a pretty light lift, right? That's just like adding in the text when people equip that. Like when those sets are equipped on the gachi, that name kind of comes in at the bottom.
Yeah, we actually have those on chain. So once we confirm which ones we are adding and which wearables are in them, we just update the smart contract and that, and a couple front ends also. We save that info on the front end as well, so it doesn't have to query the subgraph each time. But yeah, we can. It's pretty easy to update the sets. Although, if you want to get the new set, you do have to reset your Avagachi's wearables, I believe. Like you have to equip and unequip and equip again with the new ones.
Yeah, thanks, Phantasma. Give credit to Bubba Schwab, Zerk, Bin Laden, Phantasma, Notorious BTC, T-Bird, Hardcore. Yeah, all you guys. Good job.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Squat
cool.
Enjoyer. Is that a like what do you call it? Like the chopnik, isn't it? It seems. I feel like there's gonna be an Adidas. There's gonna be some Adidas in that one.
Oh
Could
man,
be
there's
also.
a cider Dan set. Does anyone, if anyone has that set, I want to like show us this what that looks like. I want to know.
Funny.
And then there's Frog King too. That one's kind of cool. Pandemic Survivor. Yeah, these will be good. These will be good.
Yeah, we'll make sure we get those made into core prop this week. Typically, we like to put out a blog post, and so it takes a little bit of time to get the assets for that ready. But yeah, should have a pretty quick turnaround on it.
Perfect. Yeah. We got the so moving forward, we got other sig props here. We got airdrop gachi respec potion. And so this one, I believe there's some discussion around the DAO maybe taking care of some of this implementation. I'm not sure, or is this purely a Pixelcraft? Like you guys will implement this at some point in the future.
If the DAO wanted to help with it, we would definitely. I mean, it's good experience for someone in the DAO to actually work with the contract and get to know them. So, if there's anyone in the community that is interested, the DAO could maybe make a bounty to help with that, and we can do any final reviews. But yeah, it'd be awesome if the DAO can make it. Typically in other DAOs, when you make a proposal, you have to include the code that goes alongside it. We've kind of done that role for a while, but it's a good time to start moving towards a model where whoever makes the proposal also provides, if it's like a smart contract, you know, upgrade, then they could provide all the code for that too. That'd be very cool.
Yeah, actually, I see Tamigachi here. He's actually outlined the tech spec document, which I believe is actually on the Notion. So we'll need a contract dev to build it. So maybe that's a bounty we can create, and get someone to get the bounty, and then have maybe a small group of people work together on that, and get as much done as we can on our side. And of course, if we need support or whatever, we can always reach out to Pixelcraft for assistance. But I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, it's not something urgent, so it's a good time for the DAO to start flexing its wings a little bit, and definitely and giving some work to the smart contract devs in the community.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great. I'll note that down, and we'll move forward with that. And so that one's ready for a core prop. The last one here, preventing owners from channeling gotchis listed for lending. That one met quorum with 9.2 million over 9, and that one met with 94% saying yes, stop the owner channeling from
Okay.
a listed gotchi. So yeah, that takes care of the four sig props ready for core. We have two core props ready for implementation. We have mint and transfer 50 DAO parcels and 4 million FUD equivalent of Alchemica to the DTF for contributor compensation. And so this would have to be transferred from. Does Pixelcraft have the 50 DAO parcels? Or I guess you'd have to mint them and then transfer
Mm-hmm.
them.
Yeah, we'll mint those, and we can just mint them directly to the wallet. I guess it's everything will be going to the current DTF. I think
The,
there's like 7 or 8 signers on that one.
yeah, the current DTF treasury.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that'll be going there. Sorry. Yeah, and then so that one's done. That one passed with 17 million over 9 million. Met quorum. 78% saying yes, transfer their parcels. So parcels and Alchemica, and we've also had an idea of doing some sort of a fake gachi thing, but we'll see. If the DAO can get some cards somehow. I think we do have some friends, but having like fake gachis also like as a badge, or having a really cool fake gachi card that you can put on your parcel, your DAO parcel, and specifically having a distribution for contributing DAO members and having a really cool card design around that would be interesting. But that's just an idea. One more thing here, we have core props that are ready to be implemented. We have add DAO liquidity to Ghost Alchemica pairs. So that's just adding the 50k Ghost to each pool, I believe.
Yep. When we are planning to get that transferred to the DTF as well this week.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So that takes care of the current props, SIG props, core props. And these are some suggestions from the Canny. Top suggestions from the Canny this week. We have Gotchiverse in-game mailbox system that's got 28 upvotes. And so people really seem to be behind the idea of creating some sort of a mail system in the Gotchiverse. And so maybe if we haven't started a forum discussion, well, I'm sure there's a forum discussion, but maybe we can kind of move that discussion along. And
that would be great, because there's definitely a lot of questions with that feature, but I think it's an interesting feature. But we definitely need to have more discussion on how that would work.
yeah, and get some details on that. And then we can maybe have an actual DAO discussion around that and see if we can come up with some concrete ideas around a mailbox system. The transporter got 19 upvotes. This is, instead of quitting and re-entering the verse to get into another location, an in-game hotkey that lets your gachi zap to a parcel. This one I feel like is going to get taken care of with the bounce gate updates that come down the line at some point, where you will be able to, I guess, bounce from one parcel to the next without actually leaving the verse. I think that's what this is trying to get to. This is what this proposal or this feature request is hinting at. So I don't know if that one's actually going to get implemented, but correct me if I'm wrong. Um,
Well, yeah, that's pretty much what the bounce gate is going to
yeah.
be, except that it won't really be a hotkey. You'll walk up to a bounce gate, and you'll be able to see the menu, and then click it from there.
Ooh, Tommy Gotchi has a cool suggestion here. Could use Lenster to send messages to parcel owners. Just need a way for the owner to post their Lens username. Not sure we need a mailbox. I think, yeah, something to integrate with Lens and having posts on Lens show up in a mailbox. That sounds really cool. But I don't know the logistics of that or how that would actually work. But it would be interesting. Radio broadcasting in the Gotchiverse. We need to develop a radio broadcast network in-game, a system for accessing it for publishers as well as listeners. That's GNN, right? That's Gotchi News Network. I feel like we kind of have the beginnings of that. You know, we have people who do live streams on Saturdays and Sundays. We have shows, like 3 shows on Friday night. It's just about filling in the gaps and having something more concrete for sure. And maybe there's some DAO funding available for that to start a radio broadcasting thing. I think this is referring more to in the Gotchiverse, and that maybe that's a feature that comes way later down the line. We've talked about with lodges and antennas and stuff, but I don't think we're probably have a lot to work on already right now at this moment. But it is an interesting idea to have a radio broadcast in the Gotchiverse. I agree. We have a lot of broadcasts already outside of the Gotchiverse that could easily translate to the Gotchiverse. So those are some canny suggestions. So with that wrapped up, let's move on to the DAO meeting today. Hardcore, thank you for posting the notes. I think what we'll do is we'll get Mikey J to come up here and touch on the Forge economics, and from there I have a lot to cover today for the DAO meeting, so I will take up the rest of the time. But we'll let Mikey J come up here. We'll talk about Forge economics, and then we'll kind of move to the other topics because those are mostly going to be covered by me. So, Mikey J, you in the house? Are you in the house? Oh yeah, you got your hand raised here. I got Dr. Wagme and Mikey J up here today, so. GM, fellas.
GM.
Morning, guys.
Yes, I don't know, Dr. Wagme, did you want to say anything first before I go over this value flow thing?
Yeah, I'll let you guys take the lead on this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all you, Mikey.
Okay, cool. So, you know, for those of you who may not know, Dr. Wagme is asked to serve as the lead on the economic side of the Forge team. And this week I really spent time trying to gather together, you know, a lot of the broad ideas that have been put out and sort of map out the way that value is kind of flowing through these new mechanics. So if you're following along on the Miro board, there's a slide, I think all the way on the right, that has 2 kind of flowchart looking diagrams on them. And, you know, we're talking about the idea, you know, as it stood when it was kind of first, you know, when it kind of first came, when Dr. Wagme first posted it, I was kind of mapping out different ways in which, you know, we have value that's created by this forge, right? And that value should come from the additional variety it adds to wearables and the flexibility and utility it offers the owner of the wearable to essentially transform them into different wearables. And I think the question is, you know, where do we want to direct that new value, right? There's a fixed amount of value that can only come into the system. And ideally, when we're all done, you know, the value that adds should be, you know, equivalent to the cost the player has to pay to use the forge. Because obviously the hope is that it's revenue generating in some way, shape, or form. So if you look at the left-hand chart, the way to kind of read this, it's a little confusing, but the way you read it is basically the direction the arrows flow is the direction the value is flowing through the system. So for example, you know, the DAO and Pixelcraft issue new wearables that increases the supply of wearables, and the value there is really going to the DAO and Pixelcraft, and the value is coming from wearables, right? Because you're increasing the supply of wearables. And the hope is, of course, that there's equivalent demand to support that. And the red arrows are basically arrows that are sort of leading away from value to wearables, and the green arrows are arrows that are leading towards more value to wearables. So you can see here, we've talked about the idea of schematics, frames, and alloys. So when you smelt or melt down a wearable and you get schematics, frames, and alloys, you're really creating value for wearables, right? You're decreasing the supply of wearables, and you are that value is being subtracted from schematics, frames, and alloys, which are becoming more plentiful. So that's a pretty clear loop to see. Kind of where I thought that we might have some things we need to pay attention to is more in the area of the forging fee. We've been talking about an Alchemica fee, which is adding value to Alchemica because you're sort of soaking up some Alchemica, and in the process, sort of taking value away from wearables because you're forging a new wearable. But really, kind of the issue that Dr. Wright and I had been talking a little bit about this week is that there's really no sort of very direct, concrete way for that value to return back into the wearables ecosystem. And so it sort of felt like, there might be a little bit of using some of the value that's built up in wearables and sort of just transferring that value into an Alchemica sync, which I know is something a lot of people have talked about really wanting an Alchemica sync. But what I wanted to offer was kind of a maybe alternate solution that we've been talking about this week, which is to, instead of paying a fee in Alchemica, you basically pay, the fee is basically 100% denominated in alloys. So if you look at the chart on the right, when you would forge a wearable, let's say you forge a wearable and it costs you 100 alloy, let's just say, to forge. When you smelt that same wearable, you would only get 90 alloy back, as an example. And the difference between those two is essentially like a revenue stream. And by removing the Alchemica fee, we're able to then direct 100% of that value back into the wearables ecosystem. Or in this case, the idea would be to take that difference between the two, that extra alloy, and rather than burning it, which is something that I think we had talked about originally, to direct that to the DAO treasury, and then let the DAO decide what it wants to do with that alloy. So if the DAO wants to take that alloy and say, use it as in-game rewards in the Gotchiverse, it could do that and add value to the Alchemica that way. If the DAO wants to create some kind of installation that provides some mechanism for cashing in Alchemica and unlocking some alloy, then the DAO could vote to do that. So it's really, instead of building in this kind of systemic transfer of value to Alchemica, to give the DAO a little bit more flexibility. So if the DAO wants to hold onto that alloy, it could keep the value in the wearables ecosystem, or if it wants to inject that alloy liquidity back into the market, it could do so sort of strategically based on the needs of the protocol at that time. So that was kind of the big discussion this week. I think Mark in the forum made some really good points for why there should be an Alchemica fee. My personal feeling is that I would prefer to keep the alloy kind of in the wearable system, or let the DAO strategically decide when and where to inject that liquidity back into the system in a more strategic way. So that was my feeling on it. One other point I'll bring up was the issue, which is a smaller point, is the issue of the essence that's required for godlike and pet wearables. And we've been talking a little bit about how to handle this sort of skill whereby the more you forge, somehow the more efficient your gotchi becomes at forging. That's kind of the other dead end that I sort of saw, which was, we're heading towards a place where gotchis can only get better at forging. And if you kind of extract that out over time, you can imagine that you have more and more gotchis that are higher and higher skill level. So therefore, over time, on the whole, forging gets less expensive. And if forging gets less expensive, that affects the wearables market, right? Because as a player, you have an option. You can forge a wearable, but you can also go to the bazaar and buy it. So we have to keep in mind that when the costs of forging go down, that has an impact on the value of wearables, particularly on the bazaar, as well. So you have to keep that in mind. So another point of discussion was, how do we sort of provide a deflationary mechanism for these skill points? so that we just don't have an endless supply of skill points out there on gotchas in the market. I thought one solution there could be to make skill points a factor in terms of how much essence you receive when sacrificing a gotchi. So that was another sort of idea that this other diagram explains. I think that's maybe a lesser point, but I do think it's something we should consider because ideally we want to have some value that could be taken back from those skill points as well. So that was another thing thrown out there. That's a lesser point. But most of all, I was just hoping that these types of diagrams could be a good framework for us for when we're creating an economic kind of system to make sure that we're just being deliberate about where the value is going and just making sure we're designing a system that fits the objective, and also just to start a larger conversation about what are the priorities for the forge, right? Where do we want to deploy this value? And I think that's kind of the big discussion, because as I'm starting to kind of assemble everyone's ideas and put this together, I want to make sure the recipes that everyone's creating and the work that we're doing serves the goal that we're moving towards. And we only have so much value to spread around. So I think having a discussion and defining, where we want to direct that value is important. So, that's what you're looking at here in terms of where we're at. I think, in terms of the thinking on the Forge team, it seems like schematics and frames and alloys are all pretty much going to be a part of this equation. I think, the remaining questions have to do with the things I just mentioned. And, I know our hope is to try and get these kind of mechanics more or less decided on in the next week or so. And then once we do that, to then move on to working on the actual numbers and things like that, that will go into it, the recipes and the costs and how the skill progression, points work and all of that. So that's where we're at.
Thanks, Mikey. Piggybacking on just for some other ideas, I think we all want to support the Gotchiverse, right? And we want strong tokenomics for our Alchemica and Glitter. Something that we hadn't mentioned as much up to this point was this concept of crafting time. So you go to Forge, you have the necessary components, you pay your fee. In our model, it's denominated in alloy eventually. And but I think there should be a time it takes to craft your wearable. And the current models I have that are like in my spreadsheet has it takes 1 day or 40,000 blocks on Polygon to craft your common, and it takes a lot, like maybe up to 1,000 times as long to craft your godlike. And then you can speed up crafting time by using glitter. And this creates a nice way to use tokens in a way that's consistent with speeding up crafting time. Supporting glitter helps support the ghost token as well as the underlying Alchemica tokens. And I think we can incorporate skill level in a fun way to reduce the crafting time it takes. So this would be another aspect of a possible fee, but kind of like an optional one. So for our lower holders, waiting a day for your forge isn't that bad. But if you're going to forge a godlike, then you need quite a bit of glitter to do that. And I think that could give us some nice support to our Alchemica and Glitter tokenomics.
Could you guys talk about alloy and the distribution of it, how much of it there's going to be, and how it gets distributed to people?
Yes, it's really complicated, and I've spent a lot of time on this concept. So kind of like an easy way to frame this is like, if you have wearables, you're getting airdropped alloy because it's already something that you have. And so this is a way that we're giving maximum value to current holders of full wearables. But basically all that, there's not going to be like any free floating alloy or alloy drop. It's in the wearables, and you have to smelt your wearable to get at your alloy. And if you need alloy to do any more forging. So does that answer the question, or do you want some more specifics on it? Kind of maybe regarding the ratios.
So that's the only way to get alloy is to smelt your current ones. Are there other ways that would be introduced in the future?
Yep, I want to keep other ways as an option. And I think it's really important for us to see what's happening with alloy. I think I really don't want it to be the bottleneck in the market, right? Because I think we're planning to use frames and the framework for the essential bottleneck. And I think we want an amount of alloy to be accessible. That's the advantage of using a single alloy instead of multiple, is it allows us to move between different traits and different wearables in the way that this was intended. But I do think we could have a path towards using Alchemica to become alloy, and that would be my hope, to like kind of have a modular introduction of the different mechanics.
So yeah, because I brought up the point in the DAO forum about could we just use Alchemica, and it seems like the main reason against it. Well, you gave multiple reasons, but one of them seems that if we use Alchemica, then it would we can't smelt down a wearable to mint new Alchemica because of tokenomics issues. Is that one of the considerations?
Correct. Yeah, that would have to like come from somewhere, and it's extra hard like as a external to the value loop to do that.
Is it necessary, like in your opinion, is it necessary for the wearables economy to do this airdrop to current holders?
I think it depends where we want value to land, like Mikey was discussing. Like, are we trying to create value and define value within the wearables economy, or are we trying to create value in the Alchemica economy? And I think those are different objectives. And I think the Alloy proposal gives us the option to have a modular implementation with.
I'm a little concerned that down the line, if we say, that would there be the ability to kind of print alloy? Because if there is, then that's essentially the same as using current Alchemica, right? The only major difference would be that some part of that alloy has been already distributed via the airdrop if someone decides to smelt down their wearable.
I'd say one major difference there is that Alchemica has a market value that's completely independent of wearables, and alloys their value will be defined by the wearables market, right? So again, like anytime we move the price of Alchemica, we're also affecting the wearables market. So it's creating kind of this economic link that didn't exist. Yeah. And I think I guess we haven't discussed this too much, but I guess my view is the only alloy that's in circulation is the alloy that's currently in the wearables. I think you wouldn't add new alloys unless you're also releasing new frame schematics, or maybe you're just introducing new wearable supply, and then those wearables could be broken down to increase the alloy supply. Unless there's some issue where alloys are just too illiquid to let people move between trades or something like that. But I think the simplest answer is the alloy that's in the system is whatever's in the wearables, and there's no additional alloy minted.
Yeah, it's a tricky question. On the one hand, I mean, introducing another token, another 1155. You're saying now you think it would be maybe one, like there would only be one type of alloy now?
Right. I think there's been a lot of good arguments to just do one. It's the most composable, like moving forward. It minimizes complexity. And while it maybe isn't as fun, like from the recipe standpoint, I think it gives us more options moving forward.
There's some people asking about the frames and how they kind of fit in with the with this whole picture here. Can we just clarify the idea on the frames? What they're correlated to. I think it's the rarity, right, of the items that are being minted, but I could be wrong. Just if we could get some clarity around the frame item.
Yep. Yeah. So the frames preserve the combination of slot plus rarity. So there'd be 36 different frames, right? There's like a godlike face frame. Right now, there would only be 5 godlike face frames in existence. And this allows us to abstract the value of having that godlike face item. And we're going to have a document called the framework, which has like a proposed goal for where we want these to be, understanding that we want kind of like equal amounts of the rare slots, so that we clearly need more godlike face items. This would let Pixelcraft or the DAO say, hey, we need to sell these. Our goal is to get to 10 instead of 5. And now we have an open path to get there. If you melt down your legendary sus butterfly, you will get a legendary pet frame, and you could use that legendary pet frame to forge a different legendary pet if you have the underlying alloy and whatever new schematic comes out. And so this will allow the community or Pixelcraft to put forward a cool schematic that people are excited.
Oh,
Oh,
can y'all still hear Dr. Wagme or
no.
no? Dr. Wagme broke up at the end there. Yeah, exactly. Just when the alpha was coming out. Yeah, I think the Forge idea is really interesting. The idea of the frames. So I guess while Dr. Wagme's getting that sorted out, I'll ask Mikey J. With the frames, are the frames going to be used to control the supply of how many actually different kinds of wearables are going to be in the market? You know, is that going to be, because yeah, is that going to be the control lever that's going to allow minting of more different wearables for a specific rarity and slot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that, that's the idea. To some degree, especially at the outset, alloys might be the limiting factor a little bit. That's where you see that kind of alloy fee going to the DAO. So in theory, that difference in alloy between what you get from smelting and what it costs you to forge, it providing some small amount of deflationary pressure to wearables, because you can't get exactly back out of the forge what you put into it, as a whole in the economy. So, I mean, I think that one of the great things is that, even just people smelting down wearables to get alloys, you're going to have, excess alloy that's not used back in forging. You're going to create this flow of alloys, frames, and schematics into the economy, and you're probably going to get an initial decrease in the supply of wearables, just based on that fact alone. Just kind of spread throughout the system, which is, I think, is really good for wearable holders. And obviously, based on the wearables, market research that we put together and things like that, I think that would be something that the community would really welcome. But I think long term, again, that the hope is then those alloys can then be redeployed back into the system in some strategic way when the DAO votes to do it, whether it's to provide additional liquidity to alloys to move between traits, or to use it to support Alchemica or whatever that might be. So, but I think long term, yes, the frames are the thing that kind of dictate the supply of wearables on a rarity and slot combination basis. Or like I said before, you could also just issue new wearables, and then those would, some portion of those wearables would be broken down into schematics, frames, and alloys that could be injected back into the system as well. So there's an option for the DAO and Pixelcraft to release new frames or to release new complete wearables. Obviously, if you release frames, you probably have to release some new alloy to go along with it if you're releasing them as frames, probably. But yeah, I think that's the idea.
And then the schematics are more correlated now purely to the design of the wearable. So it's no longer correlated to a supply per se, but you could have a schematic released, and it's just a schematic until you have your specified frame for that schematic, right? And you have the required amount of alloy to craft.
Yeah, you could think of it this way. It's like, the protocol would be then enforcing the supply on a frame basis. So, if today, I don't know what it is, but let's say there's 5,000 legendary, hand items, then you're saying, okay, there can't be more than 5,000 legendary hand items until more frames are released or new wearables are released. But the balance between the different legendary hand items and the traits could change. So you could introduce a new design as a schematic that may decrease the supply of some of the legendary hand items, without increasing the supply overall of legendary hand items. So that's where I think a lot of the value comes from. Is just allowing there to be more variety. I made like the grocery store analogy, I think, in one of my posts. There's a reason why you go, at least in American grocery stores, when you go to the cereal aisle, it's like top to bottom, just so many choices, right? Because by adding more variety, you really should add some value to the market, just based on that alone. So
That cereal aisle analogy is key there, because I think, as we're moving into battle and we're going to discover the meta of our randomly generated gotchis, like each trait set for the avagachis were randomly generated, and so we have a kind of a randomly generated mapping of traits that will actually change with every single hunt that we do. They'll be randomly generated once again, and you'll get a new supply of avagachis. So the meta of the game will probably be, will change over time, whether slowly or quickly, we don't know. But having the adaptability of, being able to move between different wearables to suit your gachi better, without actually increasing the supply is going to be, I think that's going to be key. And I think it's going to give this added flexibility we maybe don't appreciate yet, but we will once we get into battle. And it's like, oh man, like before I couldn't have found any hand wearables for my gachi, uncommon hand wearables or whatever. And now I have a choice of 2 or 3, but you need the schematics and the frames and whatnot for that. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just looking at the comments here. People asking different ways, different distribution methods for the frames and the schematics. So do you see there being like frames being released independently from schematics, because they are the ones controlling the supply, right? Essentially.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be. I think there's options there for the DAO to choose. Again, whether to release complete wearables, or just to increase the value of certain frames. Maybe because the DAO just decides that there's benefit to increasing the supply of particular slots, due to the changing meta or something like that.
I guess that's
what's perfect about GBM, right? Is we can like really capture like what the value of that specific rarity slot was, and that was difficult to design a tokenomics or alloy strategy to really appreciate every slot. But being able to GBM, the market can decide what a godlike face frame is worth. So we could have like a single or 2 godlike face frames, and like a couple godlike face schematics available at an upcoming sale, and the market can determine like what those are worth, and we can really control how we want those distributed to the market.
Yeah, another distribution method there, Mikey J, that you just mentioned is this system actually doesn't preclude being able to just offer wearables straight up if there's for whatever reason, maybe we just stick to purely this model, but for whatever reason we decided we wanted to release a wearable set, we could still do that. It would just be, you'd end up with the final product, right, that you would have ended up with. You could break it down and get your components still, which is kind of cool that we still, it's not like we're excluding the previous way of distribution. We're just adding a more flexible system for distribution that's more composable. So it's really cool.
And answering Penske's question, like how do we introduce new schematics? I think we need some work here. I think initially it's saying Pixelcraft, like you have an awesome artist. These are the ones that you can make, and go for it. But in the future, I really, really want to see a path for the community to introduce content. I think community-created content is the future of Web3, and hopefully for Avagachi. So I think having a similar process to the queue, where you submit, like, this is my wearable design, like, this is what the schematic looks like, these are the stats that are with it, and we could, like, vote on which ones we want, and you could have a predictable distribution of schematics that are available every month. Like there'll be like 3 DAO schematics every month chosen from the queue, and hopefully we can curate those to not have duplicate traits, to have a quality of art, and to retain value for that like schematic itself.
And what a cool way to get community members involved, and have a DAO vetting process like we're seeing with fake gotchis right now. And I think there's some ideas we can take from there and definitely implement, with the Forge. It's a lot of cool community designs have made them way into wearables already. So I feel like we should definitely like kind of embrace that moving forward. I see Coder Dan's comment there as well. Playing a little bit of devil's advocate there. Putting out the idea there that Alchemica, I'm sure you guys probably considered this also, but what do you think about Alchemica being used instead of Alloy? Reasons for or against. He's suggesting that a strong Alchemica demand could bleed into supporting PvP and PvE rewards. And so you would earn Alchemica by fighting, and then the loop would be you'd use that Alchemica to improve your gachi. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think my thoughts, like we talked about earlier, we should support the Gachiverse. I want to create a path where we can support Alchemica, have a path from Alchemica to Alloy. But I think having some like granular control over how we do that instead of having it systematically implemented into the system that's going to be difficult to adjust for is important. And we can do that like with the installation or other mechanics to create that path without like ingraining this in the value loop, especially as Alchemica is so volatile. It's going to be hard to like set those prices. And one of the points I mentioned is like the alloy ratios that we'll have to figure out. There would be a duplicate problem for Alchemica ratios, and maybe even worse, because we need to decide if we're going to use mall ratios, friends ratios, or item cap ratios. And that's a 2,000 to 1, 1,000 to 1, or 200 to 1 ratio of godlike to common. We'll have to decide which one of those to use. And if we use Alchemica, it would be really hard because there's going to be things that cost different prices. I don't think it meets the intent of the proposal to be fluid between different traits, and then gives us less options prospectively.
Yeah, that correlating the volatility of the underlying token used to craft the Alchemica, it could be challenging, to balance that for sure. Coder Dan's asking, will forging rate be fixed?
Yeah, I actually think that depends a little bit on how we work the success, the chance of success, and the RNG factor. So I think that's a little bit going to depend on that. I think if, like, for example, if you could make a fixed fee for using the Forge, or you could make it, say it's, I know 10%'s been thrown out there, like say a 10% alloy fee on everything, but let's say it's much harder. Let's say your chance of success is much lower for a legendary than it is for an uncommon or something like that. Then I could see it being a fixed fee in that case, because in essence you're creating a lower chance of success, which in essence creates a higher fee. It just moves some of that into the random factor. So I think that's TBD at this point, but there's a couple, I could see it going either way.
And I think as I'm thinking about it more, I really want feedback from the community on skill progression, but I think it could be smart to remove the possibility of failure. And basically that is a fee, right, that you might fail. And 10% is already a pretty high fee to pay, especially if you're going to also pay for glitter. So we need to be careful about how many fees we're introducing in this process, or we're going to not have many people do it. So I think having a kind of a guaranteed chance of success, the fee you're going to pay, the glitter that you'd have to pay, and then we can change that alloy amount later. If we decide 10% is too much, we as a DAO could pretty easily vote and say, let's lower it to 5 and see what effect that has.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally in games that I've played, the RNG factor has made things, exciting. But here, another important consideration here is whatever we decide to do here could potentially have some real world consequences if you have a godlike wearable and for whatever reason you're trying to smelt it and you were unsuccessful in smelting it, and there was some sort of a sunk cost. That could get pretty nasty for someone who owns such an expensive asset. So I guess it's important to consider that, as much as the RNG factor would be really cool for a lot of these things. Maybe the common minter, it is an exciting process. Maybe someone who has just spent 3,000 ghost on a mythical, or has the items to craft a mythical, there you have a larger sunk cost if the RNG doesn't work out for them. Failure is a part of life. Yeah, I agree. But,
I want to wait and kind of with like one more thought. I want to be modular with this, meaning like let's get kind of the concept out. People can understand what's happening in the Forge. We can see like we'll have good measures and good dashboards in place to understand how people are using this. But we can build on these mechanics. I want to create as much value to protocol assets as we can. So a cool thing we could do in the future is that, like, where's that alloy going? Like, what if when you go to forge your item, that 10% alloy like forges a charm, and that charm is like a RNG generated like list of like different charms that could have a variety of effects, or even BRS if we thought that was appropriate as a protocol. And instead of like paying this 10% alloy fee, you're conceptualizing that I'm actually like, hunting for really good charms. And this could be like a new wearable slot. And this could be something really fun that we can build in, that can be a tool for us to further encourage forging and that deflationary process while creating value where there was a fee before. And I just think that's what's fun about this concept, is we can build on it, like grow together, create value, see where we need to make modifications, and then keep adding value to protocol assets in that way.
Yeah, interesting. People just talking about this specific aspect here with the RNG. Coder Dan saying, maybe I underpay the forge fee because I'm greedy and want to save my money, but the RNG wrecks me because the variance is probably going to be higher. Or maybe I choose to pay the full fee, which is fairly high, but you have a higher chance of success, so a lower variance on the RNG. So that would be it would be interesting. But again, like you say, you follow up, no skill involved here, really, just gambling. So it is gambling. We are degens. We open portals. We do things that are degen, but it's a balance.
And then last quick thought, just kind of responding to like Mark, like, do we need skills here? I think that's a really important thing. And we got to be careful not to like step on Pixelcraft toes with the Gotchiverse and like what skills mean to them. As far as like the protocol aspect goes, I do think it could make sense. Like a master smith is going to be able to craft something quicker. So if you're a higher level, you can craft it quicker. And I've outlined like some different math for like logarithmic effect of higher skill progression, making it cheaper, or less time, which means less glitter. So like a master smith would only pay 12 million glitter, versus if you were a level 0 smith trying to forge a godlike, that would take you 40 million glitter. And that it provides value to skill progression from that standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, an interesting point here Tommy Gotchi made, and kind of reminds me of some other game mechanics, is you could theoretically, if there was some sort of skill-based system where you're getting allocated points for each rarity of wearable that you're crafting, someone who, for example, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, if someone crafts, or if someone is able to craft 1,000 commons, maybe they're, now they're at a skill level where they can craft mythicals or godlikes, but the guy who wants that godlike item, he necessarily may not have the skill to craft that, but he has the materials. It kind of creates this economy where people now have to kind of collaborate to get what they want. And that's how a lot of the MMORPGs have worked. There's a huge trading economy between skills and people that can, people who have the materials and people who have the skills to do the task. And it could be interesting, but it makes, the balancing would be challenging. But being able to have a skill level where you can craft X amount of lower tier wearables, you can actually upgrade your skill level to a point where you can now craft higher tier wearables. So, to be able to craft legendary items, you may not necessarily have to craft legendary items to get there, but you may have to craft a very large number of uncommons or commons or even rares to get to that skill level. But once you're there, you now have a service you can actually offer in the Gotchiverse as a legendary wearable smith, and you can actually maybe turn this into some sort of a business model where there's a profit fee, some profit sharing that happens there from crafting the wearable.
Yeah, I'm just responding to the skill conversation here. My point is that on chain, it's hard to really implement a skill progression that's not just like number go up when something good happens. Because I was thinking about this the other day. Like, how could we actually, like, what skills can you test on chain? There's got to be a competition or like some practice that you can do that improves your chance of winning. It's not just, oh, the VRF like favored you today. There's got to be, for it to be a skill, there's got to be something that you could practice on to improve your chances. That is not just like spending more money to improve your chance, or like, successfully getting a bunch of crafting done or forging done that would increase your smithing level. It would just be a level, it wouldn't really be a skill.
Could we like send a non-transferable token? Like if you forge a common, you're sent a token, and then you have this like non-transferable token in your Gotchi's pocket for every common you forged, and it just like keeps track of like how many you forged all time. Then we can use that for like
Yeah,
other mechanics like glitter cost.
I guess I mean more what's the game? Like what's the game that we're playing to test our skill? Like I feel like if it's forging, like it's hard to do on chain though. It's a tough thing to do on chain because you can't actually like, show a game to the user and ask them to play it before they can forge. Then we could, but that would require like off-chain gamification with the CAPTCHA thing that we implement in the Gotchiverse. It just seems like if we really want to make this like interesting, there's got to be some way to actually have a game that you could play on chain. But what kind of game that is difficult. I was thinking one thing you could do with on-chain data would be basically like doing TA and like trying to guess the price of Ethereum in 1 hour from then, or like 24 hours from then, and seeing how close you are. I mean, maybe that's someone could argue that TA is a skill that you can learn, but it's not very. It's a lot of people don't really have that skill, or don't really want to have that skill. Some people don't even think it's a skill. So it's
And I won't
the options are limited.
I won't underestimate like how much people like to dominate leaderboards. I think like just providing that little bit of value for forging, you get like a skill point to go up. You can like flex that you're the best smith out there. I think is gonna make people forge more wearables, which is gonna create more deflationary pressure on the market. And then obviously there's some monetary reward and decreased glitter costs and decreased crafting time. But I think it is a way to add value to the Gotchi specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's not adding value. I'm just saying, like calling it a skill or like giving that sense of progression. It really, when you boil it down, it just means you've tried more times than other people because you're a little bit luckier than others.
So this is a really common mechanic though, like skill points. Like oftentimes there's no like actual skill in being good at it. It's essentially like how much time or effort you've put in. So I'm not saying you have to be skillful to get to the skill point, but I think it creates enough value. And I hope to see other fun skills in the Gotchiverse too. Next up, as far as art stuff goes, that's going to be one of our bottlenecks, and we're ongoing with that. Hopefully we can get together, Dan, to talk about art. soon, because if as things are currently, we need art for essence, art for the alloy, art for the frames, and then art for the schematics. And there's quite a bit of wearables out there, so this will be a fairly big lift. So, and I know we have a lot of babies due soon, so getting that figured out sooner rather than later would be great.
Yeah, we're gonna have a call on that. I think as far as the schematics, it really, to me, it seems like how we handled the vouchers. Basically, you have the wearable that we already have, and then like a background for it, basically. So it would just be, it wouldn't really be too big of a lift. We just need to make that schematics background that would go behind each wearable.
Those wireframe designs that Zbot does would also look kind of cool for schematic, like a stripped down version of the wearable where it's just the wireframe design instead of just to show that it's not a just to show that it's not like a full it's not a completed wearable. It's it's a design, I guess, of a wearable. But
yeah.
we could put once you guys are ready, we could put like a bounty out there and get some applications for people who want to do some artwork and find someone who'd like to commit in the DAO to get the initial artwork done for some of these things. So yeah, that was a good conversation. I appreciate Dr. Wagme, Mikey J, you guys coming up here, spending time to go through with the Forge, where we're at this week, and how you guys see the Forge being forged. So really appreciate you coming up here and sharing that with us, and looking forward to subsequent discussions that we're going to be having around this. If you guys in here are wanting to get more involved in that discussion with the Forge, there is a DAO Forge discussion going on in the Discord forums right now. And so you can head over there and, if you have something here that you wanted to say but it wasn't heard, you can definitely put that in the forums. Yeah, Choina, I like that. That's awesome. So moving on, I guess I'm going to get into this D-Work. I'm going to try and rip through this, but I'm going to get through D-Work, show you guys the demo, show you what I've been working on with Notion, how it all kind of works together, and there's a few other points we need to touch on. But this is the fake DAO for D-Work that I created. Sorry, one sec. I'll just post this in the chat here for you guys to look at. So I've been testing D-Work features and looking at how this could fit into what we're doing already. One of the things I was tasked with as a PM when I first was offered this was to create a public-facing bounty board, but also create a database for all the proposals. So I wanted to find a way where these two things kind of connect together. And, thankfully, D-Work works with Notion very well. And I just need to upgrade my membership, and those things will be able to work both ways. So if you make a change in D-Work, it actually gets reflected in the Notion, and vice versa. If you make a change in Notion, it'll get reflected in the correlated fields in D-Work. So they can work very well together. But here I'm going to show you guys the D-Work side of things. So this is the public-facing bounty board, which which any DAO contributor or we'll see some roles that I've created will be involved, and this will be the main workspace for bounties. So we start with the overview here. You can make spaces within, like workspaces within the DAO space, and so I've created some spaces here which I find would be probably valuable. And so there's 3 spaces here. We don't want to get too complicated because initially we were thinking, well, maybe there's a space for each guild. That could get out of hand really quickly. The easiest way to do this was to separate the bounties into 3 different buckets. So we got the technical bounties. And these are, any sort of smart contract work, software development, software security, UI, UX, front-end design, anything like that. We have The media bounties, these are more content creation, video editing, audio engineering, that sort of thing. And we have research and development bounties. These are more along the lines of, creating research reports for business development opportunities with the DAO. It could be research projects around certain tokenomics, like what we saw with the farming release, or it could be doing research or development around other big projects going on right now, like the Forge. So those are the three buckets there. You have the proposal database, which is just the archive of all the submitted proposals. And you have the people directory, which isn't set up yet, but once we do have a roster of everyone in the DAO who is either thinking of contributing or is already an active contributor, we'll be able to place tags on people and get to know what everyone's DAO focus is and how we can get them involved. So that will live there. So we can start by, we can go to, let's say, technical bounties, overview. Oh, actually, hang on here. Yeah, okay. So this is where bounties are going to get created. So if we were to, let's say the DAO needs someone to do a task. Here I have an example task. We want someone to audit the Forge smart contract. And so what we did here is we created a new task. These are the open tasks. We created a new task here with this plus sign. And here you would want to enter the name of the task. So for example, we were just talking about designing some schematics, right? So schematic design. So the DAO wants someone to design some schematics. Here we would add a bounty. We would write this. Sorry, go ahead.
Real question, Hefe. You're in this fake DAO D-work, right?
Yeah.
Do you think, because no one can see it, I mean, we're kind of following along, but maybe you could copy and like paste it into the DAO meeting Miro board, and we could like all kind of follow along on each screen. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Okay. Yeah, okay, he's showing it on his stream, but I think what you're saying is showing the frames in Miro.
Okay, if you're showing the stream, yeah, I'm not watching the stream. If everyone's watching the stream, that's fine.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I wish I could share my screen up here because that would make things easy.
Okay, I'll just watch the stream.
Yeah.
Go watch the stream if you're not.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries.
I'll give you guys a minute just to head over to the stream there. But these are the, where is this? I'm looking for something specific here. Oh, there it is. Okay. Sorry, I got a little, this sidebar folds away and I didn't realize it does that. So, if you guys are ready, I'm going to hit it again. I'm going to go through this.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Okay. So this is the overview of the DAO space. This is what it will look like. Technical bounties, media bounties, research and development bounties, kind of self-explanatory there. We have roles. So we have some featured roles here. I'm not going to get into this right now. I'll just show you. These are some of the roles that are going to be we're going to be able to assign to the bounties. So we have, myself, we have project facilitators, a review committee, and a contributor. So we'll have different contributors. Yeah, I'll get into the details of this after, but you will have this will be the main page here. For us to create a bounty, we would go to technical bounties. We want to create a schematic design. We want someone to design a schematic, and so designs for the Forge. And then this is where we would add a bounty. Okay, so we would start by saying add a bounty, and we have an option here. We can do a fixed budget, or we can say it's open to bids. And maybe I was thinking maybe leave a week window from the day the bounty's posted to give people a week to actually look at this, to actually get into it, and apply for these bounties. So let's say it's a fixed budget. We can add our token. I was having trouble adding our ghost contract to this token list. I'm not sure why. I'm gonna have to get the proper token address. So once I have that, we can add ghost. But let's just say for current purposes, we'll say Matic. We can enter the amount of Matic. So we can say we will pay someone 500 Matic. You can also peg the amount to USD, but for all intents, we'll just say 500 Matic. We can, from here, set up a payment, and we can add a wallet if we want to, if it's going to a certain Gnosis safe. But let's say these are the terms here. We can save that. And so now we have schematic design, 500 Matic. We're going to do that. You can add skills here. So this will actually tag, once we have the people directory, if we want to tag everyone that's in design, everyone that's been tagged in design, we can do that. Here we can select the status. So right now it's to do. Assignee is, we're not going to assign anyone to this just yet because we want to leave this out for a week or so. But we see here there are already some contributors, and all the contributors in the DAO will be able to actually give them roles in Discord. And so those roles will actually correlate to those roles that I showed you before. So everybody who has the contributor role in the Discord will show up here as an assignee. They'll be able to take tasks, or they'll be able to be assigned tasks. Priority. So, let's say this is a high priority task. Task points. Let's not worry about task points for now, but it is an option for us to estimate task effort. That's something we can add later if we would like. And there's some other tags here. These tags are related to the Notion database. So you may want to select some of these. I don't want to make things too complicated. I just want to show you the basic kind of concept. So this is what the card would look like. From here, you would say create. And here it gives you task permissions. So right now, this is open to all applicants. Anyone can, any of the contributors who have registered. So pretty much anyone with a contributor role in the Discord will be able to apply for this. And so again here, anyone, or I can, specifically select, actually this says anyone. So literally anybody, even outside of Avagachi DAO or fake DAO could do this. But if I just want it to be contributor, so only contributors can apply for this. And we will save that. And if we go back to the overview, now this shows up here under open tasks. So contributors can come here. They say, oh, there is a open task here for schematic design, 500 Matic. And we can also, by the way, we can also add a, if we want to set a due date too, we can say, okay, you're starting here. It's due, let's say it's due on the 31st or whatever. And so here, the contributor would come here. They would say, I'm interested. So either you're interested or you can actually discuss this. We can link this to the Discord forum. So if you actually want to discuss this specific job offering, we can actually have a bounty board channel in the Discord where it would link to this button and it would take you to the bounty board channel. So if you wanted to discuss anything regarding this bounty, you could. Whether it's concerns or, you feel like the amount's not enough or, nobody's applied for this for a while. Can I take it? Whatever. I'm going to try and keep this as an open line of communication between this system and the DAO forum or the DAO Discord. And so you would say you're interested. When can you start? You would select, okay, I can start tomorrow. When do you think you can get this done by? I can get this done by the 30th because it says it's due on the 31st. You could write something, I am very interested. I have a design background. Whatever, I'm interested. Now it shows Hefe, I'm very interested. I have a design background. I can assign it or I can reject it. And I think the way we're going to handle bounties is um, when you become a contributor, you're going to have to tag yourself with your background. So what's your core skill set? And so I think the way we're going to select bounties is initially one, by core skill set, and then two, if we have many people applying with the same core skill set, that has to be relevant. We don't want someone who's a software developer applying for something that's artistic. You should be artistically inclined if you're going to apply for something like this. And so if we have many people who are designers applying for this with that tag, then I would go in order of date applied. So I would look at the date they applied and I'd select the first date applied. I think that's the fairest way to do it. And so yeah, I would assign this task, and then the task would be assigned to me. And then I'd be assigned to do this task. And so then it gives you updates on everything. So I created the task, I applied to this task, I added myself to assignee, and now my application's been accepted. Okay, I can start working on it. And I believe you get Discord notifications for all of these as well. So you will actually get notified in Discord, I believe. When it's time to submit your work, you can submit your work, whether it's a link. This might be done outside of DWork, like on a one-on-one basis. Like I'll get together with you, we'll do a review. The reviewers will look over your work, and then we'll disperse the bounty. So that is kind of how the bounty board system will work there. Going back to the roles, I just wanted to show you some of the roles that I've thought of that would work really well with this bounty board system. Of course, DAO project manager, I just put my kind of roles or responsibilities in there, but perhaps having a DAO project facilitator. Currently, we have people in our DAO who are, they contribute to the DAO projects in a significant way, like yourselves, Dr. Wagme, Mikey J. I'm sure there's other ones that I'm not thinking about right now, but there are people who spend, 10 to 20 hours a week, at least, maybe if not more, contributing in a heavy way to specific key initiatives in the DAO. These would probably fall under a DAO project facilitator, and currently there's probably room for at least one or two, project facilitators to be involved in things like whether it's the Forge or DAO infrastructure. And so we should think of maybe having some sort of application process for this, and having, in the meantime, I know we're talking about DAO structure, we're talking about lead roles, but these things will take a while to get established. And if we want to use DWork effectively, I feel like this is going to be a valuable position to have. And we can have this interim position, 3 months at a time or whatever. We can discuss this. But that would be the DAO project facilitator. We have a review committee. And so the review committee will be a group of, I want to say 3 to 5 individuals. They will review submitted proposals, and they'll provide task relevant feedback to me to pass on to applicants. And so ideally, I say a minimum of 3, because you see I have the 3 buckets, right? There's technical bounties, media bounties, and research and development bounties. So ideally, I would like to have this review committee be one member who's technically inclined, at least, one member who is media inclined, so they do a lot of videography, video development. They have a good idea of what the going rates are for certain types of media related work. And then we also have someone who is more data driven, analysts, and that sort of thing. And so you'd have at least those 3 task relevant reviewers. Maybe you could have 2 more, but I think 3 is a reasonable number. We would pay these people, enough for them to be interested. Reviewing the proposals is not super active process. It's more collaborative with me, and so we can have a kind of sounding board to look at proposals, see if the value propositions of the proposals are reasonable, and that way we can come back to the applicants and provide them really high quality feedback. And so that's the idea of the review committee. And like I said, it's maybe 0 to 10 hours a week. Some weeks we have no submissions at all. Other weeks we get maybe 1 or 2, but that seems to be like the going average is about 1 or 2 a week. So they would just be kind of reviewing those, looking over them, saying, yeah, this is good, move it forward, let's make it a bounty. Or they would say, this proposal needs work before we can actually post it as a bounty. So that's the review committee. And then we have the contributor. And I invite everybody in the DAO, we should start thinking of, I kind of wanted to do the people directory first so we can get to know everyone's DAO focus, their core skill sets, have a point of contact. But then once we have that, we can actually assign contributor roles to everybody in the Discord that's interested in contributing. And those people will be available to take bounties. So we'll be able to assign bounties to them. They'll be able to actually under community suggestions. And so this is the other end of it, right? I just went through how the DAO is going to be posting bounties. And the way the DAO is posting bounties is from us posting it, but the community can also request bounties. And so the community suggestions here is if you think there's a bounty that's missing that the DAO hasn't put up, you could say, I have a suggestion for a bounty. You would enter your suggestion in there and it would come up under the community suggestions box here. And so, I just put one up here, fund a working group for DAO mission and vision. And people can actually come here to the community suggestions and they can upvote. They can upvote or, not vote. And if something gets a lot of upvotes, then it will tell us that maybe this is a bounty that's worth looking into. And we can post that as an official bounty. And I can do that by accepting it. So if I accept it, then it'll give me the option to create a bounty. So that's like the overview here. There's other stuff on DWork, but I don't want to make it too complicating. There's like the ability to make a roadmap. And we can build a whole DAO roadmap here. There's leaderboards for contributors, so our highest contributors can be recognized. There's also a combined board, which is basically everything. And, we don't really need to look at that. There's also the proposal database, which if you want to see just a high level overview of which proposals are currently in progress, which ones are in review and which ones are done, you can come here and look at that. And I believe if you click on each one, it'll give you, there's a bunch of stuff in there, background information and whatnot. So that's DWork. That's kind of like a high level overview of DWork, how I think we can use it. I'm just reading some of the comments here. Who decided the structure of a review committee? I decided the structure of the review committee. It's really whoever wants to apply for it. We have, DTF members who can review. We have people in the DAO who can review. I think it's a valuable group of people, and it's currently something we don't have. We don't have a group of people who are dedicated to reviewing proposals and providing high quality feedback. And so I feel like that is missing. There has to be a channel for feedback right now. Currently, proposals that get denied are kind of just, they get gummed up. They just get left on the sidelines. And so there has to be someone who is reviewing these proposals, whether it is whether it's DTF members saying we're the review committee, whether it's a group of people coming together saying we're the review committee. Somebody has to be reviewing the proposals. And it will be an important part of having this Notion actually work. Without that, the DWork, or sorry, not Notion, but this DWork system will not work without a review committee. So that has to be established.
I think that it would seem like there would be the project facilitators those individuals would be kind of leading their specific project, right? And would they be the ones that could review the bounties for tasks that they've created? Is that how you're viewing the project facilitator?
Yeah, so the project facilitators will have permissions to create bounties relevant to their projects. So they could essentially be the reviewers for their relevant projects. That could be one way to do it. I still think we would need someone, at least if it's one individual or group of individuals, to look at these smaller bounties that are maybe not related to a specific project. That might be somewhere where we might need at least one person, who's able to look at these things objectively and say, maybe this media bounty is a little too high based on what they know, from that specific industry. But I do think having the project facilitators be the issuers of their own bounties, that could definitely work as well.
Yeah, it seems like the project facilitator would kind of be the lead of that department. So if we have a smart contracts thing that needs to be written, you would have the project facilitator for smart contracts would kind of be the head of that department, and they would be doing the reviewing. And then if we get to a point where we're doing marketing bounties, you would have a marketing facilitator that would be giving out the bounties for that. And I guess for a project like Dr. Wagme's, it's multi-department. So I guess either Dr. Wagme would be the facilitator, or someone on his team that he's been organizing would do that. Because we have kind of two types of projects. We have like the more grouped projects like the Forge, and then you would have a lot of smaller, less tightly grouped bounties, like this respec potion, for example.
Yeah, I see Dr. Wagme's suggestion there. It kind of falls in line with the project facilitator. If we were to say, okay, well, maybe we don't want a review committee. We want to actually have the points of accountability based on the project facilitators. Then the current way we're thinking about this with the leads would actually kind of work that way, where you would have these facilitators for, like you'd have a technical project facilitator, you would have a more marketing and media orientated project facilitator, and you would have the more data driven. But I also think things like like the Forge could have its own project facilitator. And so project facilitator is kind of a vague term, but I didn't want to start saying leads for this and leads for that, because it might make things complicated to understand. But basically a point of accountability for that specific grouping of tasks, And so, I'm open to things. I'm just throwing my first suggestion out there, but to have a group that's actually reviewing these things and providing feedback is essential, and it's something we don't have right now. So just wanted to put that out there. We can continue to discuss that. But I really like the proposal database. I mean, I like the fake DAO DWork. What I've done with it so far, I think it's going to be a really valuable tool. And it works with Discord really well, so we can, it's not a big lift for us to start assigning roles to people who could be involved here, and start kind of experimenting with this tool.
Yeah, I think a lot of DAOs also use the task points or story points as a form of reputation in the DAO. I think that's a cool metric that we could use. I think on our discussion with them, they did talk about that you could kind of use those as a form of a point.
Yeah, that's those points that I kind of didn't really touch on when I was, when I was going through this. But the points could definitely be assigned to people who are doing work, and it kind of works like Coordinate, where you're aggregating points through these bounties. And then those points will dictate where you are on this leaderboard. So every month we could see the top contributors, we can see the top reviewers, and then there's an all time down here. So that's that's that. I think this is the easiest way to approach it, is the 3 buckets: technical, media, and research and development, and then everything can fall under that. I don't think we should make it too complicated, because we should focus on trying to get really good at using this. And so starting with a simple version is going to be better, I think, than overcomplicating things. And at this point, we don't get a lot of submissions for funding requests. So it's not like this is going to get really messy, but eventually we may want to break this up into subcategories or whatever, however we decide to arrange it. But this will be probably the easiest way to start out. I can invite contributors in the meantime to start playing with this, or we can move over to the real Aavegotchi D-work that you've already created, and we can start building on that. I just didn't want to start initiating that process until we've all kind of understood what this tool is and how it can help us.
Yeah, I don't want us to. Well, it doesn't seem ideal to like move too fast and potentially miss some key things. So, there's strength in moving slowly but precisely. So we should definitely be intentional about how we do this. And I kind of agree with Dr. Wagme that we need to finalize that DAO kind of statement and the structure of how we would like this DAO to go forward as we're moving out of the cocoon phase here. That seems to be a very important part of the overall structure before we start getting into too much in the weeds of media bounties or various smart contract bounties or various things like that.
Yeah,
What's your thought on that?
I 100% agree. And actually, regarding the mission, this is a good point to pivot now to this mission and vision statement. I think what we should do is get a form together, aggregate some really good questions we can ask to form these statements. Let's get I was working on a tally form, but I haven't actually filled it out with any questions. But we can put these questions out to the DAO, and then perhaps next Sunday we can have an actual formal conversation around the mission and vision statement, and we can actually come up with a rough draft. The other thing is, I was going to suggest, now that we have the Discord forum feature, this is something that wasn't available to us before, but I want to know people's thoughts on a weekly guided discussion on really popular but well discussed forum posts. Keep those discussions moving along. And so what it would look like is myself or another host teaming up with the original poster of the forum post and going through some of the latest posts, taking questions, doing some sort of a kind of a summary around where they're at with the idea. And that would be recorded, and it would also be available to our friends who may not be reading all the forum posts and keeping up to date with what's going on in the forum. And it could provide a really nice kind of summary and progression to the conversation that's happening in the DAO forums that we didn't have before. So I think it's going to be something, if we decide to embrace this, I'd be happy to do, a 1 hour segment every week, and maybe every Sunday at the end of our meeting on Sundays, we can vote on what 1 or 2 topics people would like to cover during the discussion, and we can have that hosted at some point during the week. Alongside I think having the original poster of the forum is also important to have there too, so that we don't go off the rails with their original intent or idea. But yeah, that's kind of my 2 thoughts on that, and how we can move that discussion forward as well. I would like to do maybe some sort of a guided discussion around the mission and vision this week, and we can maybe get together that form for people to fill out and come up with a rough draft. I think that's what we can do for actionable items.
What do you guys think of the new DAO forum so far? We've been using it mainly for the Forge discussion, I think. But what do you guys think of the Discord DAO forum versus the ironically named Discourse DAO forum, which is the current DAO.aavegotchi.com?
I really like the DAO forum. I'm definitely more active in it now. I'm getting the updates on my phone as people are posting as well, because I'm connected that way through Discord. So being able to access the forum kind of anywhere I'm at and get like little updates on the forum posts that I'm getting notified on has been really good. I think, I don't know, like I think if people find this really helpful and they find the guided discussions a valuable feature, um, we should try the guided discussions and just see how it goes. But if people find it a valuable feature, we should maybe think about migrating from the traditional form and archiving everything we have there, but migrating over maybe to Discord. Um, it seems like it kind of makes sense to have one central place for discussion rather than two, but also decide like if we want to make that transition or not.
Yeah, I mean, we're giving it a try here. I must be a boomer. I kind of prefer the old forum, but I'm sure I'll get used to the new one.
It is a little bit of a different interface than traditional forums for sure. Yeah. Just reading
The
Mikey
new
J's
Discord
comment.
homepage. What is that?
That's when you log in, or I think when you first come to that Discord page, there's like a home page that shows up. It's only happened a few times to me, but it shows you like the most popular posts. There's just like a general kind of summary of what's going on in the Discord. So yeah.
How do you guys use the forum here? Because I mean, there's a bunch of posts. Do you follow every post? I guess I'm used to seeing the notifications, and it kind of I know kind of where I left off in the old one, which is really nice. Whereas with the Discord one, I find myself kind of just getting overwhelmed with all the discussion and every post here. I think it's probably just because it's more active than it was before. That's also there's just more content being created than there was on the original one, which is good. But yeah, I definitely agree. Some sort of summary would be useful. Try and keep up with everything.
Yeah, and I think we could. This is another opportunity for people in the DAO who would like to, would like to participate in helping these discussions move along. Be welcome to, have you join us, and just I think it's going to increase engagement overall. I think it'll be good. Maybe this week and next week I can host it as a test, and we can gauge some interest and see how these discussions go. And then people like it, we can keep doing it. Maybe I might try and see if we can find a couple other hosts, and see if we can keep this. We can keep it going. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so you're saying another like an hour discussion on various forum topics, or like a summary?
Yeah, it would be part discussion, part summary. So we would pick, we can't cover everything in the forum, but we can definitely cover, like, for example, maybe 2 items that people vote on Sunday. We would like to see this on the discussion for this following week. And so then I would take those couple items and we would cover those, and then I could do a little summary at the end for anything outstanding as well.
I mean, as for content, like if I went on YouTube, it would be useful to hear like a 2 or 3 minute summary of stuff rather than looking at an hour-long video. Like, I'd love to know what's the latest updates on the Forge proposal in 2 minutes here.
Oh yeah, okay. I've been talking to No Future about this. He's been doing summaries and cutting up like really valuable bits from our DAO meetings and from our hangouts. He's been posting those, but I could see something like that being really valuable for the forum, where it's easy to get lost in the sauce. It's so easy to get left behind when people start posting a lot of great ideas and the discussion like moves forward overnight, and then you wake up the next morning and you're like, what the heck just happened? Like, I was on post number 10 and we're at like 55 now. It's like all this developments happened in that time. So That's why I appreciate these Sunday DAO meetings. I appreciate Dr. Wagme, Mikey J coming up here and talking about this sort of thing. But yeah, I think having more of a targeted forum discussion is going to be helpful as well. And the summary, of course, like a couple minute summary or 5-minute summary or something like that. So yeah, that's the live discussion I wanted to touch on. And the other thing I already kind of mentioned was the people and talent directory form. That's something I'll get out during the week. Maybe it might take a couple weeks for everyone to fill it out. But if you're interested in being a DAO contributor, or if you already have contributed to the DAO in any way, definitely fill out that form. We want to know your skill sets. We want to know like your DAO focus. We want to know how we can help you, get the bounties that you want. And yeah. And one last thing here, the podcast episodes. I think someone was saying that the podcast episodes were not showing on Spotify. And so Anthony's gone back and he's fixed that. So all the podcast episodes should now be on Spotify for listening. But that's I think that's all I got in my notes here for today. Yeah, this is all I got in my notes here for today. So we covered a lot.
Yeah.
I hope you guys enjoyed the DWork demo, and I'm hoping we can adopt DWork as a tool, and I see a lot of value in DWork. So we can continue kind of fleshing out the ideas of the structure around DWork. Who's going to be the reviewers? Who are do we even need reviewers? Who's going to be reviewing the proposals? Is the project facilitator and whatnot. But once we have those worked out, I think we should start using the DWork, and we can actually post some official bounties on the official Avagachi DWork.
All right, friends. Well, I'll call it a meeting then. Great call as always, and yeah, looking forward to this week and next week's call.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, friends. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Cool. Happy Sunday, everyone.
Later, friends.
Later.
Peace.